You can stop me at any time during the conversation to add detail. You just stop me in the middle of my stream of consciousness here, and we'll address any additional details. So anyway, these are the two books that I have written right now. I have a third book that's a little more than half done. Actually, it's probably getting closer to being done. It's just that I have a little more to do with it. It's not quite as technical as the second book, but a little more detail oriented than the first book. Because the feedback from the second book was it's really technical, and that's my fault because that's what I wanted. I didn't want any more generalities. I wanted like concrete information on what's what. And I guess that'll become relevant at some point in the future when Todd's no longer here and somebody discovers the book or whatever, or not. You know, either way's okay. All right. Whoops. So about me, as it says, I'm a humble messenger with a clear connection. What I present's valuable to those that are ascending into the next octave of conscious density and have found my information. And to elaborate on that a little bit is your normal person immersed in the construct will never be aware that information like this exists because it's too far above their resonance. So they're going to be um, unaware, and they're going to continue in whatever their paradigm is of their experience. And at some point in an incarnation, they'll find that they're ready for the information, or when they start to read it, it's a remembrance because they're a traveler under a veil, and this helps thin the veil and gets them on the path that they need, and that's all good. And my information's for anybody who looks for it. It's not reserved for those willing to pay for it. I don't have a paywall or a Patreon or PayPal or any of that other kind of stuff where, you can read or listen to my videos if you pay a certain amount every month. And that's completely against everything that I stand for. And the information that's coming through, because the information isn't mine. It's not like I don't own it. Well, I have copyrights on the books and that sort of thing. And that's kind of important in the construct we're in. But this information is universal knowledge. Just because we don't have it here doesn't mean that it's special in any way. And I just happen to have a connection because I reached the point where I could pierce the veil and get the connection and get the information. So that's me. The first question on here is talk about myself and how the information came to me, starting with the dreams that I had. And that's a long discussion, and I need to kind of paraphrase that a little bit because as a little kid, I had dreams of flying and being on other planets and stuff, and you don't think much about it because you're a kid, it's just part of the dreamscape that you're in. And I could hear what the people were thinking, what the grown-ups were thinking around me when they weren't talking. And, as a little kid, that's really weird because they're thinking weird stuff that you're not, like they, yeah. And anyway, I could look at a house and I could tell if it was a good house or a bad house. You could just see the energy coming from it. And I always had these dreams about columns, like ancient Greece and Rome would have been in their glory days, and walking through these incredible gardens and everything was just so sparkly and pretty and nice. And it was like a bleed through from another lifetime because I could kind of feel and remember some of the things that I was doing. I was still little. And as it says in my first book, I kind of immersed myself in the matrix, and girls became important, and money became important, and jobs and all of that stuff that you do when you're in your early teens, late teens and early 20s. And I forgot about everything. um then one day I was in my driveway, um and this guy appeared out of nowhere. I don't even know where he came from. He just walked right up to me, started talking to me, and he shook my hand. And when he shook my hand, I felt uh like this burst of energy, and like my mind opened up or something like that. And I don't really even remember anything else that he said to me after that. And he's like, okay, talk to you later. And I turned around to do what I was doing. And then I turned back around and he wasn't walking away or anything. He was just, well, just wasn't there. So I don't know what happened to him. And and again, I didn't think much about it. I figured maybe he jogged off or whatever. But it was right there that the shift started happening in me. And I understand what happened now. I mean, he accelerated my array and he got me to start piercing the veil that I was under. But it was there that I started wanting answers, deeper answers beyond the ones that were provided. And I got on the internet and I started looking for everything. And you know, pretty much we start with aliens and then we move on to, whatever. But I was fascinated with past life regression because of the dreams that I had as a little kid. So I started researching who I might want to give me a session, and I found QHHT, and it seemed benevolent. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't anything. And so I went and had a QHHT session with someone that I heard them on YouTube, and they had, I resonated with the voice, and I was like, okay, so I'll go do that. And it was there in that session that I had a block on me because they were going to put me in one of those mill lab programs as a kid. They were doing testing on everybody in school. And this is what I heard in session. It was really close. So there was a block put on me so that I didn't have any kind of abilities to do anything. I guess from that point on, I didn't hear people's voices in my head anymore and that sort of thing. And so that block was removed in the session, and I was put into what I called a light chamber. And I saw this cocoon thing, and I was like plugged in my crown chakra, and it just like energized me. And it was just crazy. It was like being electrified on shaking on the bed and everything like that. And after that session, a little bit of time went by. Of course, I was not the same. And then I started writing stuff down. And shortly after that, I decided to become a practitioner. So I went to Eureka, Arkansas, and did the in-person certification. And part of that certification, you have to the students give each other sessions. And the person who gave me my initial QHHT session said, boy, I really feel sorry for whoever's going to give you a session because that's really going to, and it was true because when I went into that session, I immediately went to what I called God Source. And I was in this big, crazy blue plasma sphere. And this video or this clip is on my YouTube channel, Introduction to a Galactic Consciousness. But it was there. It aligned my body. I was again shaken on the bed. I felt like I wasn't even on the bed. I felt like I was like levitating. My body was levitating over it somewhere. Probably not the case, but that's what it felt like. And I understood the construct of the entire universe at that point as I'm looking out. And the person that was giving me the session, God bless her, she didn't really have the wherewithal. She couldn't handle it. And I did most of the talking but in any case, at some point in that, I had them touch my body, which you're not supposed to do in any of these sessions. But apparently the universal consciousness was like, no, you can do, I don't have to abide by your silly rules. Touch me, touch the body down at my ankle or whatever. And I could feel the energy running to the student. And then I told the student. And this all happened because the practitioner didn't really know what to ask. And she asked, I want to have the best possible session that I can for the greatest good. And the universal consciousness interpreted that as, okay, I'm going to fix you guys up and give you the energy you need so that you can, move on. Anyway, after that session, I started writing the first book, and the first book just came right out. It was just like boom. So I've never been the same. The first QHHT session blew the doors off, and the second QHHT session just totally destroyed the vehicle I was in. And I was just like consciousness on the roadway somewhere looking at the universe. So That's my backstory. Are there any questions related to that before we move on? You're muted.
I think that's a great introduction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What does QHHT stand for?
Quantum healing hypnosis technique.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great.
It's a Dolores Cannon thing. So you just look up Dolores Cannon and you'll get overloaded with information.
Thanks.
And your experience may differ from mine, so don't go in expecting, right? But it could be. You could hit source too, universal consciousness, and have all the answers at your fingertips too, or at your mind, I guess. All right. That's me. So the next questions, there's several of them about describing creator, the origins of creation with relation to the universe, and how Earth is unique. And I don't really align with the term controllers, but how it's different on other planets. So okay, we have to start with prime creator. And this is in the second book, and I'm going to condense it here. There is infinity. This is how it all began. Infinity, which Todd in this body has a hard time grasping infinite anything that just goes on forever and ever and ever, because I feel like there needs to be an end somewhere. I can't see it. From my perspective as prime creator, when I tap into that, and I have tapped into that, there's no end. It just goes on forever. Okay, anyway, in a sea of endless quantum electromagnetic particulate, you call it a photon, but it's not light. It's just electromagnetic particulate, just out there. This gentle wave starts to blow in this particulate. It starts to move it. Instead of it all being just stationary, it starts to move. And as it starts to move, it starts to bang into each other. And when these particles bang into each other, there's an energetic impact associated with that charges the particle ever so slightly. And the universe the cosmos, infinity started to move like this. And these bangs increased in momentum and in energy and in effect. And these singular particulates instead of banging off each other, they spun and they adhered to each other, and they became clumps. And these clumps eventually became this thing in the center right here, this toroidal sphere. And as soon as in the very center right there, you see this center, you would consider that to be its consciousness. When that center happens, the seat of consciousness energizes, prime creator became self-aware. It was like, I am here. Okay. From my perspective as prime creator, when I connect to that, there's only one. And the reason there's only one is because it is so vast, and it is drawing so much power now that the particles are no longer just randomly oscillating. They're moving towards prime creator. They now have a purpose to move towards prime creator. All right. Prime creator then, after a period of now existence, it decided it wanted more of itself. It wanted to experience, and it began to fragment. And a fragment is this toroidal sphere, and then a smaller one that is created within it. And you create the barrier membrane around the sphere, you start the rotations, and at the point that it looks like this, it becomes self-aware inside this sphere. That was the creation of the first universe. Now over here, there are 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and we have a new universe that has just, I say, started, but from our perspective, there's no time. But when I look there, I see this new universe that's beginning because of the energy that is being created by the other 18 within Prime Creator. So this is the universal construct here. And you see the little point that says you are here. This is our universe that we're in right now, that Earth resides within, this little universe here. And how do you put that into perspective when it's a sphere and you can look at it from, I have no idea, but that's the information I was given. You are here. I was like, okay, we'll run with that. So the Prime Creator is using infinity, the energy of infinity, to energize itself. And within energizing itself, it is energizing all of these other universes that are existing within it. So the energy that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, it doesn't have an end. It's infinite and it's always available. Any questions? And I know that this,
I mean, as the beginning is in darkness. So is this all happening in darkness?
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, these are energetic particulate and there's nothing. And once Prime Creator exists, I mean, it seems to me when I'm there and I'm in it, it's this golden plasma. It's what it says there, golden plasma filaments. It's just like this crazy amount of energy. But as you're there, obviously, we don't have physical eyes. So what am I observing? I'm observing electromagnetic intensity. Just like we do in the light spectrum here on Earth, we have a light spectrum that we're watching, and the color that we observe is based on the energetic intensity of the photonic particulate, right? So this stuff is this crazy golden, and yeah, so material creation didn't exist yet. So when the first galaxy, I mean, the first universe was created, that universe had to, because the energy's too big here, you can't have this. It has to be sequestered within another consciousness. So each consciousness has a barrier membrane that filters the energy to what's inside it. So the first universe had to create the first galaxies so that the galaxies could be far away enough away from the seat of consciousness that it could create physical structures. Did that answer the question in a roundabout way?
Well, yes. I'm listening a lot.
I'm doing my best with a very complex topic, and I'm trying to make it as brief and succinct as possible, but it's a big conversation. And you know, as you talk about Prime Creator, that's really far removed from where we are here at our level of density. So, but it doesn't feel like a very long trip. I mean, it's right there, and there I am. So, and how I'm able to talk about it is, I think I know why, and I think I know how, but we can get to that. All right, so Prime Creator looks like a toroidal sphere. Every consciousness is a toroidal sphere. Okay, moving on. We exist within the 10th universal consciousness ejected from Prime Creator. The galaxy Earth resides in a relatively new one, far from the universal core. Our system consciousness, the solar system we're in, is a younger one existing in the outer band of a spiral arm. So what we're looking at here, and I just pulled these off the internet because they seemed, they kind of fit. What we're looking at is we're looking at our universe, and it is half of a toroidal sphere. The other half had been cut off there. But you see the column, you see the energy, it's showing the energy coming in and going out, which it's not exactly right, but that's okay. The energy is going through the column. This is the seat of consciousness. This is where I went in my second QHHT session that I called God Source. This little plasma ball right here. And in the universal consciousness, I observed it to be blue plasma filaments, and the energy was crazy. And then the universe itself, all of the galaxies, they're shown out here in this arm, but that's not the case. They start here, the first 12 are here, and then they move outwards. And there's billions of them. So, and that's just in this universe alone. So here's just imagine that this is our galaxy right here, whatever it is. This would be the galaxy, the galactic consciousness, another toroidal sphere. And you can see that the center of the toroidal sphere, its seat of consciousness, is awareness. And then the spiral arms kind of represent our galaxy. We're in a spiral lenticular galaxy. So this is our galaxy, and it is again a consciousness. The core component of consciousness is an energetic particle that's encoded with the experiences an individual focuses their attention upon. And that's kind of important concept there, is just a sentence right out of the gate there, that if you're focusing on really horrible stuff and you're, watching all of this news and all of that stuff or whatever, if you're looking in the direction of lower density consciousness, you will find it. And by the same token, if you're looking for the ascended constructs and ascended consciousness, and you want to raise your octave of your vibration, you're going to find them too. As these particles divide and multiply, your consciousness increases in particulate density. And this is the terms that I use in my book, are the densities of consciousness, because beyond a certain level, dimensions no longer exist, because at sixth density, you don't have a body anymore. You're an energetic collective existing within a planetary consciousness that's just massive. So there's no physical dimensions left. And sixth and seventh and eighth and onward, there's no dimensions. So if you don't talk in density, you kind of lose its meaning. So there's first density, second density, third density, fourth density, and we'll get to those in just a minute. Increasing particulate density within consciousness brings increasing ability to utilize creational energy, which creates an energetic wave that brings the awareness of unity consciousness. So when I'm talking about an energetic wave, we're looking at these rotations. This is, again, a toroidal sphere that I've made a cross section of. And this is the column, that the energy flow of creational energy. So we're here on Earth. So our creational energy input is coming from the planetary consciousness. So it's filtered through. And so if you include prime creator, it's filtered through the universal consciousness, the galactic consciousness we exist within, the system consciousness, which is our system star, and then the planetary consciousness, which we exist within. And we're also in a third density construct. So there's yet another reduction that's occurring that we'll talk about in just a minute. This is the energy that's available to you to energize and create your physical body and, anything else that you want to create within your reality. And these particles move, they shoot out of here and they come around, they lose their energy and they come back in, they get re-energized and they come back up. And each one of these represents an increasing energetic rotation. So they come in fully depleted from the barrier membrane, the thing that's protecting you, that's keeping your individualized awareness individual. It comes in completely depleted. Here's where all of the energy is being utilized in your toroidal column, and it hits the first rotation. And there's millions of rotations. I just only had room for 11. So it hits the first rotation. It goes around, comes back out, gets a little bit of energy, comes back again, comes back again. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then it comes through this last time and gets all the energy it can. And that's the one with all that energy that's creating your barrier membrane. And it's going to lose the most energy because this is the thing that is protecting your conscious. Whoops, let me go back. This is the thing that's protecting your consciousness and all of the experiences that you've had in all your lifetimes from being overwritten by an increased energy field. So it loses all of its energy and it comes back in here depleted. This is the weakest part of a consciousness right here at the very end, where before it enters a column, with the barrier membrane rotation depleted before it starts re-energizing again. And this is an endless, it just, endless. All right. So that's how consciousness happens. And that's how individualized consciousness protects itself. It has a barrier membrane that protects it from being overwritten by other energy fields. Any questions?
So
Okay.
that's an actual physical substance, that membrane.
No, it's energy.
Oh,
We
okay.
can't see it yet. This is what people, when people
Okay.
say, I can read auras, this is what they're looking at, is they're looking at your barrier membrane and they're looking at what color they perceive with their eyes or whatever. I mean, I can feel a person's energetic component, but I don't really see colors on people. I can just, you just feel it and and you can kind of hear what they're saying and that sort of thing. So no, this is consciousness, and we on Earth do not have the ability to observe or define consciousness yet, but we will. We'll get there. And at some point, we'll have ships that actually move throughout galaxies on conscious bandwidths. They just think about where they want to go, and boom, they go. There's no moving parts. There's just a ship, and it's a living ship, and it's made with a consciousness engine that goes where you tell it. Crazy stuff. Okay. So what this shows, and this is in the second book, this is the energetic reductions of barrier membranes. So this outside here would be prime creator. This is the universal consciousness. So this is the first energetic reduction. So the barrier membrane filters everything out. And then the galactic consciousness uses the energy that the universal consciousness provides, creating another reductive membrane that then goes to the system consciousness, reducing the energy yet again, to the planetary consciousness. I don't know why my mouse keeps disappearing. To the planetary consciousness, and then inside the planetary consciousness exists at a 6th density octave. It has to, or it wouldn't be able to create and hold the planetary sphere. So the planetary sphere is the physical body of the planetary consciousness, and it is tasked with maintaining the planet. It's keeping it together, keeping it coherent, and keeping all of the different timelines in play, and all of the different things that are occurring in different ones, keeping all the planetary grids harmonized and working right, which is not an easy task in a polarized environment because there's energy trying to take energy away from other energy, and it's difficult. So inside the planetary consciousness comes the energetic reduction of 5th density, 4th density, and then in that very smallest box, it says 1st through 3rd density. That is the lowest energy field that exists within Prime Creator. And it exists there because the material of the planet is sequestering. Let me just read this, what it says here. The cultivation and ascension of consciousness requires low creational energy fields that allow the binding of 1st density particulate into coherent individualized spheres. And we'll talk about that in just a second. These seeds of consciousness grow in the low energy environment and then strive to reach higher energy constructs. Low energy environments are created by sequestering creational energy within the material, which in turn creates the physical world incarnated consciousness grows within. How much energy is sequestered to create a 3rd density construct? Consider a nuclear explosion and the devastation it causes. But even that only liberates a fraction of the energy from the most unstable atoms. So if you were to take all of these particles, these things that we smash in colliders, and we know quarks and muons and bosons, and I don't even know what terms they're giving these things now. You smash them all down, and what they find is there's nothing there. There's just like energy and things rotating, and there's nothing. But as you smash them, put them all together and compact them, all this energy, this is creating material. And it's this material, this planetary material, that allows us to be in this really low energetic field that allows first density to mature into third density and third density to mature into fourth density, at which point, the process keeps going. As consciousness increases in density, it must enter higher energetic fields for continued growth. So, like an engine that runs on gasoline, if you have it going just as fast as it will go and it's starving for fuel, then which is what's slowing it down. As soon as you give it more fuel, it'll go faster. Well, this is what consciousness does in these lower energetic fields. As we ascend and move towards the fourth density, we need more energy for our continued growth in consciousness, not just in the body, but our energetic sphere needs more energy moving through it so that it can continue its growth. This is why third density moves into fourth density and fourth moves into fifth. So the higher energetic fields are associated with ascending space-time constructs. Higher energy within the construct means that less energy needs to be sequestered in the physical material. Less energy means a lighter and more malleable space-time construct. So if we're looking at this graph, we see first density origin, which is just, a human. I mean, first density would be like a single cell organism in the ocean. All right. Increasing conscious density, as it increases its conscious density, those little particulates that are growing, it's moving up this scale, and this is what it's doing. It hits second density, and becomes a tree and whatever, the fish, eventually a cow, monkeys, blah, blah. And then boom, it becomes self-aware in third density because the toroidal sphere has created a seat of consciousness at the center that becomes self-aware, and it understands that it's individualized and that there's more to it. And so when the deeper questions start, what am I? Where am I? I know I'm going to die someday. Where do I go after that? That's where third density questions start coming in. As you're moving up in energetic density and energetic power, the material constructs that you're existing within, and you'll see that third density and it drops down. And as you hit fourth density, the ascending space-time constructs have less and less energy in them so that there's more energy available for the consciousness to utilize. And that was kind of just a side discussion that I threw in there. All right, so one of these questions talks about how consciousness, explain how the creator makes souls and what they are. And then there's another one about some come directly from creator, and that's a side conversation, but let's stick with organic ascension, which is what this is showing. In first density at ground state 1.0, the planetary consciousness contributes a single energetic packet. I call them photons, and that seems relevant. Single photon. As these single photons do what they do, they start to bind together and divide and clump, and they start to become bigger. So a single-celled organism would become a multi-celled organism, and as the consciousness becomes bigger, the vehicle it inhabits needs to become more complex because more needs to happen to create continued growth. So we're watching, and this is what we see on Earth. We see this lavish construct that we're in, this beautiful construct with this diversity of life. And it goes from the smallest thing to very complex humans and everything in between. That is ascension in a nutshell. At second density, ascending, you can see that now there's a toroidal sphere, but the column hasn't completely joined together. It's just kind of dipping down because of the rotations, and the seat of consciousness is not fully developed. This is kind of be like, a little more than this. You would be maybe, your pets or whatever, because your pets are learning a lot, and they're learning how to be humans from you, and you're giving them love, and that love helps accelerate their array. So these are the animals that are moving around that are, you know, trying to become more and more self-aware. And at some point in between their incarnations, they achieve self-awareness. The toroidal sphere, the column is complete, the seat of consciousness becomes energized. And the full discussion for all of this is in my book. So I'm paraphrasing again and really condensing this so that we can, you know, get through this and move on to, you know, actual questions that aren't part of this slide presentation. So at third density, it's self-aware, and the first incarnation as a human on this planet has to be in a very basic construct. If you're wearing loincloths, you're, you know, walking around doing the caveman thing, or the you know, living in teepees and learning how to be a group, learning how to do all of that. Those timelines still exist here. We have no concept of them, but they're still here because they have to be, because we still have second density consciousness graduating into third density, and they need somewhere to learn how to be a human, because this is a very complex construct, and anybody can look around and see that. All right. Any questions on that? Okay. This was in answer to what is the overall big picture of a soul's path. So the overall big picture is there is an upward spiral of ascension that we are all embarked upon, regardless of whether we're direct ejections from creator or whatever. We're still in this incarnation, we are still in the upward spiral of ascension. And this upward spiral of ascension, you see first density, you complete the ring, you go to second density, you complete the ring, you go to third density, you move up the spiral, and you're in the fourth density. Now, if we look down upon this spiral, we see that the radius of the upward spiral, this is the line of neutrality. So when you start at first density, there's no energy in your consciousness. That's zero. That's called the 0 point of consciousness. You're just sitting there at the 0 point. As you gain energy, and then I'm not going to go through the technicalities of what I discuss in the second book. I'm just going to keep it simple. As you gain energy, the radius of the spiral from the center grows. This creates the expanding rings that we see here. Is that each one of these in any point is a little farther away from the center than every other one. And it may not look like that in my picture, but that's exactly what's happening, is that you're getting farther and farther away from E0, which is no energy in your consciousness. You're growing up, you're ascending, and you're moving through the densities in this spiral. So this spiral is not just like a direct line. Otherwise, we'd all be the same. We'd be the same consciousness. There has to be a portion within here so that we can all choose where we want to be. This is this is a non-polarized view of the upward spiral. All right. So we, even in a non-polarized environment outside of this galaxy and different galaxies where there's no polarity, there's still individualized conscious. Everyone is an individual, and they have free will choice to decide where and what it is they want to do. But outside of polarity, the desire to hurt or inflict any damage on another consciousness is unthought of. It's not even a thought that comes into your mind. You would never even think about it because it doesn't exist. And this is the non-polarized pathway upwards. Okay, and then there's a discussion in the second book about how that works and the non-polarized ascension and that sort of thing. So it ensures that no two journeys will ever be the same, because there's latitude to move around in here to choose your experiences. All right. The polarized ascension pathway. So the polarity envelope was created by expanding the operational parameters in the third through fifth density. And it only exists within this galaxy. That's the information that I have. Other people have said that that's not true. I don't, yeah, from what I see, that's not the case because polarity is considered an infection and no other galaxy wants this stuff. You know, they want the vaccination that keeps it away from them. They don't want this. This is like COVID was in 2021 or whatever. So anyway, this envelope, this galaxy decided, hey, you know, ascension, if there's nothing to make you want to ascend, sometimes you stagnate. And I have experiences that I remember, as odd as it may sound, being a galactic consciousness and watching my creation stagnate. And they had all the awareness of what comes next. And they didn't want to ascend. They just didn't want to do it because they knew what came next and they knew that there was increasing responsibility and they just wanted to stay where they were. Okay, so this galaxy said, we're going to create something that will make them want to ascend beyond it. So we're going to create the negative, so the opposite of ascension, and that then nobody wants to be, no consciousness wants to be too far away from the unity of God's source. I mean, creational energy, why would you want to be away from that? That, you know, so you begin your experiences with a negative rotation within your consciousness, and it pulls you away and further into self-awareness and away from, you know, unity consciousness. And you start thinking about yourself, and you should pull yourself back out and go, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. This is uncomfortable. Unfortunately, that worked for a while, but then it didn't, and then it got out of control. So the expanded envelope there, and you see that I've taken a cross section of it, and it's a lot bigger than the one I just showed you in the other slide, created the opportunity for negative experience. And to balance that, there's over positive experience. And you might say, I know what negative experience is. It's that evil stuff where people are just randomly killing and, you know, only thinking about themselves and letting other people starve and all these horrific things that we attribute to, you know, people that are self-absorbed and only care about themselves. Overly positive is the exact opposite. They care about everybody else to the expense of themselves. That's an overly positive consciousness that will allow detriment to the self for others. And you can see that eventually those have to balance. You have to balance that out and come back to unity consciousness where everybody matters, including yourself, and move forward beyond that. So if we take that cross section there and we move it over here, this is what it looks like. There's the negative polarity, and it gets highly technical, and I guess it's necessary so that you understand that I'm not just, you know, blowing smoke, because I didn't want that. I didn't want to just be like someone else that's just talking about, you know, vagaries and esoteric things and mumbo jumbo. I wanted concrete discussions about what consciousness is, how it moves, and what this negative polarity thing is and how it all works. So in my book, negative polarity is a reverse rotation. You spin the photon in the opposite direction, and that pulls the energy out, which is, yeah, it's a longer discussion. But this graph right here is the overly positive portion, and this is the negative portion that exists within this expanded polarity envelope within the upward spiral, third through fifth density. So that's where negative polarity comes from, the ideas that all that matter are the selves. If we were to take an axial view of that and cut it, what we see is this. We see the little dotted lines here represent the non-polarized envelope that exists unilaterally throughout the universe. And the expanded envelope comes out, looks like a little balloon, and abruptly ends as you move into sixth density. Sixth density is unity, which is shown here as this starts to narrow into sixth density. And the image represents the axial view, the polarity envelope within the upward spiral of ascension. Like I said, the dotted lines represent the non-polarized pathway. Consciousness must return to unity to exit the polarity model. And this has gotten some travelers, volunteers, whatever you want to call them, in trouble because they get stuck here. The non-polarized envelope is shown decreasing as it meets 6 density because the energy of that octave requires unified thought. So at 6 density, you are in parity with the planetary consciousness. You are one with the planetary consciousness. It means that you are immersed in the system consciousness energy right there at the very edge. You have to have a balanced array and be unified in thought and behavior in consciousness to exist there. So, and the discussions on this are kind of long in the book, and they explain everything in much more detail. But this is part of the upward spiral, so you would see a consciousness moving through its experiences up into here. You know, maybe they do some bad things, and then they have some good lives where they make up for it, and they do this and this and it, and eventually they get to the top and they pop out into 6 density, and they can look back and go, "Whew, what a ride!"
Todd, I wanted to point one thing out if I could.
Okay.
Of something that you said. Actually, it was on the last slide, but you were in a rhythm and I didn't want to interrupt. It's amazing what you said about the spin being backwards, because when we look at molecules, especially if they're synthetic molecules like from pharma or, synthetic vitamins, when we shine a light through those molecules, they actually spin backwards. So the synthetics, and there are some exceptions, but most of them spin backwards. And the ones that are natural spin the right way. And I just thought that was fascinating because it's even true at that level.
Well, the universe exists as simplicity overlaid to create complexity. So you're going to see repeating designs over and over and over and over again that add upon one another to create this level of complexity that we're enjoying here. So, and it all goes back to the original awareness of Prime Creator as a self-aware consciousness. Got to the point, it's like, I can do this. I can create more of me, and we can all be buddies and hang out and, share experiences. Okay, so there's another question in here about the ascension of Earth, whole shifting and catastrophes, and so talking about the current ascension process here on Earth. Okay, so the ascension process that we're going through now is kind of unique, and it's why everybody in the universe is kind of looking our way and outside of the universe too, in one way or another. Because we have this polarity experiment thing that's coming to an end, and we have our ascension in our physical form, which we're going to move into the 4th density with the planetary sphere as it moves. And that's all going to happen at the same time. And it's created a lot of interest, and a lot of people want to know about it. And I think you sent me a video, and I don't watch the whole things. I don't have that kind of time. I'm sorry, but I kind of like skipped through it, and I heard the person saying something to that effect. I don't even know who it was. There's something about the attention that Earth is getting because of what's happening. And it's not just the Earth. It's, the polarity removal is happening throughout the entire galaxy, which has created a whole lot of interest for a very long time. It was the reason I came here to do what I'm doing. But Earth is unique in the fact that polarity is moving away at the same time that these cleansing waves are going to be washing across our planetary consciousness. So the planetary consciousness of Earth is in the final galactic cycle. There's 3 of them. This is the last one. This means that its creation, physical and energetic, are moving into a higher energetic state. Polarity will be removed simultaneously as Earth shifts into a higher octave. This delineation has been called the event, the shift, ascension, the rapture. There's probably a bunch more names than that. The moment of the event, the sun will emit energetic waves that wash across the earth. And that it's going to be of such magnitude that negative polarity can't exist within it. So all negative rotational polarity will be neutralized. And if there are heavily negative entities on this planet at that time still, which it's going to be hard to believe, if they're density negatives, that's a different story. They aren't going to be here after the wave. Maybe their bodies will be, but their consciousness will be gone. So imagine the Earth and the thousands and thousands of years of warfare that humans have waged upon it, and all of that negativity seeping into the planetary grid and the Earth chakras and that sort of thing. All right, so there's a lot of negativity, negative rotation within the Earth at this time. And all these energetic waves that you hear people talking about on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, all these waves are meant to remove a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, so that the magnitude is lessened a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, to minimize the physical changes that the Earth is going to go through as the planetary consciousness is cleansed of negative polarity. There's going to be some changes. And I don't like to talk about things that cause fear because there's nothing to fear. It doesn't matter. Even if an earthquake happened right where I'm at and it swallowed me up and my body died, I wouldn't care. I know what comes next. It's all right. I'd be like, oh, I didn't expect that. I don't see that coming. So it would be like a surprise. I'm like, oh, check that out. But I'm not worried about it. So there are going to be some planetary changes that occur. However, the ascending construct, the consciousnesses that are moving into fourth density, their experience is going to be much less because they're already going to be moving towards unity. The third density consciousnesses are still going to be here because we've got a very complex ecosystem happening. We still have second density consciousness moving into third density. Third density needs to continue. Their experience is going to be a little more traumatic because they're going to need that to bring them together so that they become unified to overcome what they're going to experience. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to move into the fourth density physical shift, but I'm going to be really old by that time. So, I kind of think I'm really old now, but I still feel great. But at that point, I'm going to be really old. And I know that because it's towards the end of my lifespan, and I don't know what that is. I know I'm at 90 something, so in my 80s somewhere, I expect it to probably happen. And I'll still be around for that because I've got information and I can provide assistance. So I've decided to stay for that. This lifetime for me actually is a vacation, believe it or not. I chose to come here on vacation. This is my vacation. And the Todd that I am is like, what were you thinking, man? But okay, nonetheless, ascension through the non-polarized upward spiral will resume after this event happens. The polarity envelope, that expanded polarity envelope that I showed you earlier, is going to contract right back to the non-polarized envelope, and the ascension will continue. Earth was never meant to be a polarized construct. The planetary consciousness that came here and agreed to take over as the Earth consciousness did not have experience with polarity, and it was not supposed to be here. It was brought here, and everything else has happened as a result. And I was going to put a lot more information about that in here, but that's in my third book, so we'll leave that as a surprise. So when this shift occurs, when these waves happen, there's going to be three groups of consciousness. Those who are not ready, the third density consciousness that don't have the density and balance to move into the higher energetic construct. Those who will be moving with their bodies into the fourth density construct, which is really exciting. And those who have the required balance and want to move directly into the fifth density. And they're not going to do that with a body. So that's why it shows them moving up in that little picture there. So if you look at this picture, you see the third density is a little darker over there. and that the fourth density is a little brighter. And what that's meant to signify is one is going to experience a little more calamity than the other, and that the fourth density, the consciousness is moving into the new construct, are going to have a much easier time of what's coming for them. Now, this separation also explains where everybody went. So there's going to have to be enough happening that we don't find a bunch of bodies and there's people missing from the construct that didn't just like disappear in the blip or whatever from like a Marvel comic or movie, that it's explainable. Any questions on that?
When you say that those who go directly into the fifth density, you say they're going to be leaving their body behind, so just their consciousness is going, and in fifth density, are they taking a new body or are they going to stay in just consciousness?
The very first movements within fifth density are within a body. And towards the end of fifth density, you no longer need a body. You are manifesting a light body. And so there's this transition where you move from a body to not having a body. It wouldn't be that abrupt where you just go, unless you're a traveler or a visitor or, a fragment, whatever it is, that's here from a higher octave. And you want to go back to that, then of course you remember what you're doing and you just go back to it anyway. The ones that have been here a really long time, that have been held back and confused by the polarities, they have the balance and the energetic wherewithal to move into the fifth density, and that's what they want. Yes, they're going to move into there, and then they will assume a different body, just like we do when we die and we reincarnate. We get a new car, and they'll come back and experience the construct again.
So are we calling that death?
You need a microphone.
Yeah, it would be a death, the physical death of the body. Yes. But
Oh.
again, keep in mind, these consciousnesses have agreed to this. This is what they want. It's not being forced upon them. It's happening because it is their decision to do this.
Okay, I have another question, a
Okay.
series of questions. So can a human create a toroidal sphere by, let's say, mimicking the flow of energy in a toroidal fashion that creates a positive charge? Let's say you're passing oxygen through tubing, which creates the positive charge in the oxygen. And then a person can breathe the oxygen, or you can infuse the oxygen into water and drink the water. And would that heal a person and also help them ascend at the same time? And would it speed the process of ascension?
The only thing that's going to, well, as far as what you're talking about, I don't have any information on that physical toroidal spheres. We're already doing that with electricity, and it would make sense that we could then move gases through these toroidal pipings and energize them somehow with electricity, the EM waves that are coming off electricity. And at that point they may assist the human body. I don't have any information on that, but it would be plausible that that could provide a positive feedback to the body and help it grow. Consciousness, however, the only way your consciousness is going to ascend is because you're putting in the work within yourself to do it. And that work includes meditation and physically, and consciously making the effort to stay out of negativity and not be around those people that you can feel are pulling you down a little bit. And you get around people that lift you up and you're like, wow, this is great. I feel energized. And then you get around other people and you're like, why am I so tired? And as you start to understand that concept, you realize, oh, it's energetic. I understand what's happening. They're sucking the life out of me, almost literally, right? So you stay away from that.
So then if let's say theoretically it's possible, then by creating this positive charge in the water, we could essentially consider that water living and help help our consciousness along with our bodies. I'm just saying theoretically,
Well, the energy, theoretically, you will help your body. I would agree with that. Yes, I would agree that you could theoretically energize your body with water that has been positively energized. I conceptually agree with that. I don't have any information on that. I've never, put that into practice or, done blind studies or anything about that. However, the energy of consciousness flows into your body. It is the thing that is energizing you. And the second that that connection is gone, the body dies. You stop. You're dead. There's no more energy for the body. The energy doesn't move from the body into the consciousness. There's a symbiosis involved, but you're not going to expand your conscious density by eating or doing anything that you're doing. What you're going to do by eating clean and removing all the toxins is you're going to make your body more susceptible to the energy that your consciousness is putting into it. It's going to be more vibrant. You're going to have abilities. And I think I talk about this here just a little bit longer, in a little bit. But I from my perspective, and you take it for what it's worth, I don't see anything that you do with your body creating energetic density within your consciousness. It's the other way around. You're making the commitment to cleanse your body through your consciousness, whether you're drinking this energized water or eating vegan or whatever it is that you're doing that you think is cleansing your body and making it a better receptor for the energy of your consciousness. It works from consciousness downwards. Anything else?
Todd,
Yeah.
those that are moving in with their bodies into fourth density, could you maybe explain from, the third density perspective, they will no longer see those in fourth density, and fourth density will not be able to see those in fifth density. If you could just kind of explain that whole process of, how it splits, what will each group observe?
Okay, so this is in the second book, I think, where it talks about timelines. We have several timelines in play on Earth right now that we have no awareness of whatsoever. Like I said, the primitive timeline is still in play because it needs to be there for consciousness that is just moving into a human self-aware experience. There are, as odd as it sounds, the Roman era is still in play. The Viking era is still in play, and they're still doing what they're doing. Our timeline has moved beyond those eras of time, and we see the snapshot of what occurred to bring us where we are now. When this split happens, it's going to be considered moving into an alternate or ascending timeline. The fourth density will no longer see what remains in third density, and that timeline will continue on its own. And that's in the second book, and it shows that axial image of the polarity envelope, and it shows them splitting, and one goes this way and one goes this way, and they have no knowledge that the other exists. So a third density consciousness on the left-hand side of this picture will have no knowledge that there's a fourth density construct over here in this timeline. And then, at the same token, the fifth density consciousness is not going to be aware that there's a fourth or a third. Well, to some degree, they are going to be aware because they're going to have the conscious awareness because they're not going to have the veil of forgetfulness around them. So they're going to remember their prior lifetimes and they're going to remember everything that's going on, and they'll have awareness of all of the timelines in play, and they will probably have the technology to be able to slip between timelines, which some of the craft that we see are already doing that from some of our other timelines. Not all of them, because we have ships from all over the place around here that are watching Earth. But did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one other question. What confuses me is I feel part of my spiritual mission is to help others heal. And I've been a healer all my, adult life and as a child. And so I am with beings who are negative. And I certainly understand what you're saying, how they weigh you down and they get you down and you feel how your energy, is not positive energy. So what do you do about that? It's that dichotomy.
So the first thing you have to do is shield. And we talked about the barrier membrane. And in my first book, there's a shielding exercise that helps you harden your barrier membrane. So if you look at your barrier membrane around your consciousness as a knitted thing, you know, a knitted blanket where they crochet it together with the little sticks. I don't even know. I guess I'm saying it right. I don't know. My grandma used to do it. But you can see holes in it, right? If you pull on it,
Mhm.
you can see holes in this knitted fabric. However, if you squish it together really tight, you can't see through it anymore. And this is exactly what you're doing with your barrier membrane, is that you're closing it off. You're making a conscious, concerted effort. So if you're a healer, you should know how to shield and how to clear your energetic fields after you're done working with someone who needs your assistance.
Okay,
And and that's all in my first book,
okay,
that you make the conscious decision before you go to meet this person that um you are hardening your barrier membrane, and that you are in service to them, but that you are not going to allow any infringements, which means they stay on their side of the barrier and you stay on your side.
I
And
like that.
and the only thing that you're giving them is what you want to give them. So, you know, if you're healing through your hands, or you're healing with touch, or however you're healing, that's the only energy transference that you're going to allow. And before you go into these sessions with these clients, and this is what I do before every session. I sit here in my tree studio and I remove all my polarity, and I'm like in service and I'm shielded, and boom, and off we go. And I've had some really crazy sessions with people. I was waiting for their head to spin around and stuff, but none of that came towards me. And you know, I stayed in my sovereignty and we got them through it, and they, you know, thanked me profusely and moved on with their life without this infringement or, you know, setback.
Right,
So,
thank you.
yep. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Oops. All right, the next conversation was about chakras. And this is going to touch on why I say the consciousness is the driver of the body, and it doesn't move in the other direction where the body energizes the consciousness. It's a symbiotic relationship, but the consciousness is always going to be the higher voltage. So if we're looking at a transformer is always going to move from high voltage to lower voltage, and it's not going to turn back around. In this case, it's never going to turn back around. You're not going to reverse it. All right. So the chakras are the energetic vortex points where the energy of consciousness flows into the physical body. They're also used by ascended consciousnesses in fifth density when they move past the need for a body to create their light body, where they manifest this light body, and they can make it look like they're really there, but they're not. And they're using their chakras within their array to make this happen for them. So consciousness requires a continuous flow of creational energy. This is the column in the toroidal sphere that is taking in creational energy, energizing the particulate, and it's going through all those rotations that I discussed earlier, and then it releases it depleted. And then the process is just continuous. This is always happening. Consciousness requires the continuous flow of creational energy. It achieves a dual flow characteristic as consciousness reaches the threshold of fourth density. Dual flow within the toroidal column then becomes dual flow within the chakras, and more energy is then available to the physical body. So when we first start out, and I didn't put that in this discussion, when we start out in third density, the flow of particulate is up and out. It's just one direction. It's called single flow. And the amount of energy in your chakras is limited because of that. There's only so much. When we start getting towards fourth density, like I said, we need a higher energy construct to move into. We've achieved dual flow within our rotational array, and we need more energy to be able to do the things that we're doing. These are where the healers come in, the people that can move energy through their consciousness into their body and out of their hands and do amazing things. And you know, some people have videos out there where they are doing things that you just can't explain. And they're at the precipice of fourth density, and they have dual flow within their toroidal column. Give me just a second. All right. So when we're looking at a chakra within the body, and you know, I show the 7 there, the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown chakra. And I show a little thing here that's not entirely correct, and we'll discuss that in just a second. Single flow through a chakra node empowers the body, but does not provide enough energy to do much else. Like I just said, no energy healing, no psychic abilities, you're just in the construct. Blockages within the energy pathways of the body will create disease when the energy doesn't reach the vital portions. So all of these chakras are connected to meridians within the body in your neural network. And all of those movements, and it's in my second book that shows the neural network within the body. All of that moves to energize the body, to keep everything working the way it needs to work. And of course, you know, what you eat and how you eat has some impact upon what happens to the body. But by and large, if you're maintaining a relatively healthy diet and you have sufficient energy, you can keep your body clean and energized. Once we get towards fourth density and that dual flow begins in the column, consciousness will begin to seek ascended concepts and may develop abilities, healing abilities like you have. That's where we start looking for answers that aren't easy, you know, like none of this makes sense. And what am I doing here? And this is where you start waking up. You're like, okay, because you're starting to see through that energetic veil that's keeping you in operative consciousness. You're starting to see beyond it, and you're it's called energetic. You're starting to do an energetic overlap. It's your energy starting to extend beyond your barrier membrane. Once dual flow begins, I already said that. The physical body will also benefit if the energy centers of the nervous system are clear. The Chinese medical knowledge of qi and acupuncture are based on maintaining proper flow of this energy through your body. And they knew thousands of years ago that this was important. So when we're looking at a chakra, and I don't think I show anything more than that. When we're looking at a chakra, we see just like this two-dimensional image most times that show up from the Vedic teachings and that sort of thing. But really, it's a three-dimensional energetic sphere, and there's two sides of it. So when I'm talking about dual flow, I'm talking right here. So here's a chakra, and this is the energy coming in, and you can't really see the little arrows, but they're coming in this way, and they're coming in this way, and they're going out this way, and they're going out this way. So instead of just having an in and an out, you suddenly got almost twice as much energy when you've got dual rotation within your chakras, within the body, to energize your body. And this is where you start to have the clairvoyance and clairaudience and the healing abilities and that sort of thing, when you're willing to share that with people. So third density consciousness exists under a veil of forgetfulness. It's an energetic veil. We all agree to it. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It allows us to have an unimpeded view so that we can become whatever operative consciousness we choose to be in this lifetime. Anyone that knew what negative polarity was in third density would never choose it because they wouldn't want to be away from creational energy. So you have to have a veil, otherwise you wouldn't be able to play the game. And a game only works if you've got two sides to play, right? Somebody has to agree to beat a bad guy. And so, right, when you used to play Cowboys and Indians, nobody wanted to beat a bad guy. Everybody wanted to be the good guy. Otherwise the game doesn't work. So you get a veil of forgetfulness, you make your choices, you play the game. You're either the obstacle to ascension or you're the thing that accelerates it. You make your choice. So this veil is created, and it creates a smaller toroidal sphere within the totality of consciousness. Remember when I said prime creator created another portion of itself within itself? It created an energetic barrier membrane, and it created these rotations, and these rotations became self-aware. Oh, I'm aware, and I'm in prime creator. This is exactly what your totality of consciousness does at every, with some assistance from, ascended consciousness. Every incarnation, it creates a smaller portion of itself within itself inside this barrier membrane. So here's your little body, and here's you inside the veil of forgetfulness, growing up and becoming a person on earth. And here's your totality of consciousness. All of those lifetimes that you've had that you don't remember. And, I remember a bunch, but I don't remember everything because they weren't important. They were just part of the process. That's your totality of consciousness. Everywhere you go, your veil of forgetfulness is inside your totality of consciousness. Your totality of consciousness ain't anywhere else. It's right here. Unless you're a fragment. And that's a different story that we can talk about later. But this is the concept that I'm trying to convey here, is that your veil of forgetfulness and who you are is inside the larger aspect of everything you've ever been. So the crown chakra is named because it's the one that resides above your head. In reality, the crown chakra is the upper opening of the toroidal column that's created inside the veil. And this thing becomes open and starts to glow when the energy of these particulate, that one that comes shooting out of the top to make your barrier membrane, when that one's got fourth density energy coming out of it and it's going around, it's going to make this thing kind of glow gold. And some people can observe that and they can say, wow, I can see your crown chakra. It's just golden. People have told me that before. I could see your crown chakra. Wow, it's really gold and just glowing. And I was like, okay,
Todd, that's amazing that you just said that, because I had a student who could see chakras, and she would talk about gold sparkles above heads.
those people were pushing fourth density. Yeah, and she was observing it. Yeah. That's the concept there. So this is your crown chakra. So dual flow moving upward from the heart chakra is what energizes the crown chakra. The heart chakra is critical to ascension of positive consciousness. Obviously, a negative consciousness can go in the other direction, and it's all their lower three chakras are the thing that are driving them just like hard. That's why all of these evil people are into all of these crazy things that they're doing in their root chakra. And, whatever, as Todd has a lot of judgment about it, but my higher consciousness is like, yeah, whatever. It's just, experience. It's not one that you're choosing, but they're just having an experience. Well, Todd says, no, that's terrible, and we shouldn't let that happen. But, I'm just the person here. So when you energize your heart chakra, and people have said, I've had this heart chakra awakening, and I've had it too sometimes, where just being around somebody and it's like, bam, wow, what was that? Okay, well, when that happens for real, when you get dual rotation in your heart chakra, you're going to feel that, but it's going to not have anything to do with anybody else. It's all you. And when you feel that, you're going to feel what they call a Kundalini awakening. It's another term for energy. It's going to shoot up your toroidal column, up your chakra network, and it's going to burst open your crown chakra. And at that point, you're going to have this greater awareness to whatever's going on. So it's your heart chakra, and it's based on the balance of your lower three chakras that energizes your heart chakra. But once your heart chakra energizes and it shoots up, your crown chakra is energized, and that's where you become aware and able. And this is where the clairaudience and the clairvoyance and seeing people's auras and that sort of thing come from. Any questions? No? Okay. So that was it. This is I'm going to leave this here while we talk so that you can read it. Not while we're talking, but later when if you ever listen back to this. This was I think it's on my Facebook expansion for Ascending Consciousness group or whatever you call it. And this is one of those that I posted there. So let's look at our list here and see. In my book, okay, hold on. Please explain the enlightened volunteers we've had in history and why many of them were physically terminated or imprisoned. Okay, so imagine Earth in the time of Jesus, because, you know, this is the one we're most familiar with. He's a candle, a light that comes to this planet, an ascended consciousness that comes to the planet to try and, you know, illuminate the darkness. You drop this candle in a sea of darkness. Everything that's dark is going to see that candle and is going to come to it. And of course, there's, you know, there's a lot of other people that are coming too, because he had the energy within him by the time he got to the part where he was recognized. He had made his awakening in his awareness, and he had gotten to the point where everything was where he needed it to be, that when other people came in proximity to him, they would feel their heart chakra open. And in some cases, it was so profound that the heart chakra opened up the crown chakra, and they didn't have an understanding of what was actually happening because they were in proximity to, you know, an ascended consciousness that had this energy within it. And they became devout followers. Well, the darkness also wanted this energy because the reverse rotations need positive rotations to keep themselves going and to increase. And this is how the polarity experiment got out of control, because they kept looking for more and more positive polarity so they could continue to expand. So these people that came, and I came initially to Earth in the temple of Asclepius. And I've been told that there's this picture of there's a carving that's over there in Greece that it's on the website somewhere. I found it somewhere, I don't know. And then when I looked at it, I heard that was you. There was a carving of me healing a person on a bed using my energy, and right behind me was my twin flame, because that added the energy I needed that completed the circuit at the time to do my healing. So I'm one of those volunteers that came here. There's been many, you know, we know about Jesus because obviously they built a religion around him, but there's been many others, and there's been ascended volunteers that come here that are overly polarized, that allow themselves, they take in all of the energy. They're neutralizing the energy and they're keeping it internally. They're not flushing, they're not meditating, they're just taking it in, and they know they're taking it in and that it's going to eventually kill them with some sort of disease. And they're okay with that because that's what they came here for. That's an overly positive experience, that they're in service to the collective at the expense of themselves. So there's a lot of that going on too. So the reason that these ascended consciousnesses are persecuted is because the darkness wants to feed off that. They want that. They want that energy. So, and they don't want the planet to shift into love and light, because then what would happen? They wouldn't be able to be here. If 90% of the population was suddenly all love and light, darkness would immediately be gone off this planet. It couldn't be here. It would just evaporate and go away. That's why there's such a concerted effort to keep war and famine and all of the other things that separate humans from being in unified consciousness. And you think of all of the divisions that there can be. So in negative, there's division. And mathematically, you can divide that almost infinitely down to nothing. And however you divide consciousness, you just keep doing it. But unity, there's just one. There's just unity consciousness. And at the point that the planet decided that it wanted unity consciousness, we wouldn't need an energetic wave. We would have done it ourselves. But, you know, it's confusing here, so that's not going to happen. Hope I answered that. In my book, I describe it as a failed experiment. Okay, so in the first book, the expanded polarized envelope was created. It was meant to be the people that chose that, the consciousness that chose that, were meant to be the impediment that would force positive collectives to form to overcome them. And, you know, for a while that worked. But then negative polarity, the consciousness that was turning negative reached a point that it didn't seek the light anymore. It just kept wanting to be negative. It didn't want to come back from that. There was this allure, this power and control allure. It's very addicting that for these self-absorbed consciousnesses, and entire planets of positive polarity collectives were eradicated by negative polarity explorers just for the simple fact that they could, and they could take their energy. And I have given sessions to people, and they're in an energetic construct. They're in a fifth density energetic construct, and they see the darkness coming, and there's nothing they can do about it. They're really worried. They're really worried. We can see the darkness coming. Oh, okay. So, as an observer, what do you see? We've been destroyed. They destroyed everything. Yeah. So, that was where the imbalance started to happen. So galactic rotations, all rotations within the universe, within Prime Creator, require impeccable energetic balance. Everything has to be balanced. And you can just think about all of the planets and everything floating around in this galaxy, all rotating around. They are all rotating and staying in symmetry for a reason. And the ones that aren't are moving around because they're imbalanced, or they've been set on purpose because sometimes that's fun to watch things collide into each other, as long as it's not impacting anybody's consciousness. Earth, this system, the system that Earth is within a quadrant where they're ready to ascend, and we've been holding them back. Earth in this system has been holding them back, and that we need this sector of the galaxy to move forward into fourth density, and it's going to happen whether we want it or not, because we're at the end of the cycle. So that's going to happen. So there has to be balance. The polarity experiment almost imbalanced the entire galaxy, and which would have then caused a cascading failure throughout a lot of other things. And of course, that's not going to happen. And the universal consciousness could just wink its eye, if it had an eye, and just eradicate everything, but there would be collateral damage. There would be positive consciousness affected too, if it was just a galactic wide cleansing that happened. And of course, if the galaxy was to threaten anything else, that would happen. It would just, in an instant, boom, okay, done. So when I hear other people talking about, the whatever evil or darkness, whatever they're talking about, and how it's this and how it's that, it's doing whatever it's doing, but really there's no competition. I mean, we're talking about a universal consciousness with the energy to just create galaxies. It's certainly not going to be afraid of some kind of negative entities or collectives that are existing at a lower density, that it's not even a concern. It's like being in a rowboat in a stormy sea. We're in the rowboat and it looks really, really bad from where we're sitting in the boat. But once you're out in space and you're looking down, it doesn't look like anything. It just looks like, oh, there's some weather down there, right? So there's my analogy of that. So it had to be removed. The experiment was considered too much maintenance. It requires way too much maintenance for the benefit that it provides. Ascension can be completed without the need for the polarity interference. And this it's why it's being phased out. It's not like it's a failed experiment. It's too much maintenance. There's just too much involved to keep it balanced. And why? Anyway, what physical changes will take place to our DNA when we ascend? Okay, so the energy of consciousness empowers the body. More energy in the body means things are going to change. When we move into fourth density, it's going to be a lighter construct. We're going to have a lot more energy to work with, and things are going to start to change. Right now, I hear some people talking about crystalline bodies and this and that. And any doctor or anybody else that's looking at a human body isn't going to see anything out of the ordinary. We still look like the same human form that we've always been. Experiments notwithstanding that have occurred. When we move into fourth density, yes, there's going to be some changes. Our bodies are going to become lighter. We're not going to need to eat as much because we're going to have a lot more energy to empower our bodies. When I first got done with that session where I said I went to God source, I barely ate for almost a month. I was eating like fruit and a handful of nuts. I was getting like an hour of sleep, and I had more energy than I knew what to do with until I finally said, hey, look, I'm a human and I need to sleep and I need to eat, or at least I think I do, and I want to still. So like back off, guys. I need to, be more human and less whatever this is you've made me into. So anyway, I can see that that's going to be the experience. Once we get into fourth density, the experience is going to be less of a need to eat, less of a need to be physical because the construct's going to be lighter and we're going to use our minds a whole lot more. We'll probably still talk for a while, but we're not going to need to. We're going to realize that we can hear each other in our heads you know, and at that point, you're not going to be able to keep a secret. So you can't lie. There's not going to be any negativity. So why would you want to? So, yeah, the bodies will eventually change based on the energy of our consciousness that's empowering it is going to prompt the changes that are going to occur to adapt us to the new construct. And it'll be a slow process. So don't expect any like miraculous changes to occur once we roll off into the new construct. Why do people experience different things in their near-death experience? Okay, when you die, you're a consciousness that is confused. I won't be confused even if I died, I fell out of the treehouse and broke my neck. I wouldn't be confused. Well, I mean, I think there probably would be a little bit of a disassociation of, hey, where am I? And right? And then you see, okay, so if you're Christian, you might see Jesus because that's who you're looking for. Expect, right? You don't want to see Satan because that that's a bad thing. You don't want that guy. So you might see Jesus. If you're Muslim, you might see Muhammad, or I don't know much about that faith, but you might see whoever it is you think you're going to see. Because the first thing that needs to happen is you need to be comforted. You need to be in a comfortable situation wherever you go. You may see family members. It all depends on what it is your consciousness wants and expects. It's exactly what you're going to see. So when I see these people that are having conversations that are they're devout Christians, I died and Jesus was there or somebody else was there. I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's exactly what I would expect you to see. That doesn't mean that when I die, I'm going to see that because I'm not expecting that. I think that Jesus was a wonderful soul who did wonderful things here on the planet, and unfortunately, his life ended in a bad way that I'm sure he wasn't happy about. So when you die, you move into your healing construct. And I had a dream where I met Walt Disney in his healing construct. And I know he died back in 1966 or whenever it was, because I looked it up after the dream. And I was like, hey, I'm from 2018. I'm a future guy. He's like, oh, okay. Because I was in his office for whatever reason. I don't know. And he was working on the Sword and the Stone. So it was 1963 is what he thought it was in his healing construct, because he died abruptly. He died of lung cancer very quickly. And he didn't like that at all. He was powerful and he didn't want to die. And I've done that too. So it's how we had the energetic connectivity to do that. So he thought he was still Walt Disney and still in charge of his company and still doing his things when I was there. And the first thing he asked me is, hey, did we ever make Beauty and the Beast? And I was like, oh yeah, man, you guys have made that like 4 times. You got like Broadway shows, you got all kinds of stuff going on. And you're just consuming every other film company out there. You're just eating everything. So I looked it up after the dream, and Walt Disney died in, like I said, I think 1966. And he was never able to adapt Beauty and the Beast because it was too difficult to adapt to a film. So if you're a guy that can make just about anything happen, and I didn't know anything about that, you can make anything happen, and somebody from the future shows up, what would you ask them? Probably the one thing that you couldn't make happen. Man, that's how I knew. That was a real dream. That was pretty cool. So your NDEs are going to be different depending upon what you expect. When I was a Viking and I got killed, I went to Valhalla. Man, that was cool. When I was a Roman and I got killed, I went to this crazy marble thing and I walked in and there were all these scrolls on the shelves because that's what we were, scrolls, right? Well, that was the time for scrolls. You're gonna see the thing you expect because it's meant to be comforting and to make you at ease. All right. So yes, I'm going to be staying here to serve in the fourth density construct. Just something I agreed to do. Yeah, I guess. How can ascension end psychopathy? I guess that's how you pronounce it. On Earth and in our galaxy. You talking about like crazy people? Whoever, I don't know who said this, but
Yeah, psychopathy is basically those that completely lack empathy, that are, participating in those very dark things.
So when negative rotations are removed from consciousness and only positive rotations are allowed, the thoughts will not even come into your mind to do dark things. They're not available to you anymore. This kind of thing, like I have these streaming services and I'm looking through Netflix and all, it's one killing show after another killing show or some revenge thing or this or that. And where's all the funny stuff? Where's all the happy stuff? Where I don't want to watch the Hallmark channel because that's all the same kind of, sappy love story stuff. But we're can we do anything else besides that in the movie industry? Well, why do you think that's being pushed upon you, But once we shift into fourth density, no one's going to want anything to do with any of that. We'll remember it. We'll have the experiences, those of us that have moved on and aren't trying to stay negative, we will still have those experiences. We'll still have the memory of being that, but it's going to be like burning a witch at the stake. It's like this some kind of crazy crap we did back then when we didn't think right that we don't do anymore because we've moved beyond that. We just don't do it, right? We're not going to burn a witch at the stake, right? We don't do that anymore. Well, we're not going to kill anybody anymore either. It'd be the same kind of disgust. Some have described the creator as containing both good and evil. Okay, I don't know who did that, but that's an incorrect assumption. And I don't know where they were looking or where they got their information from. When I was at the universal consciousness, there was just energy. And you at that vibratory state, you don't really call it love. It's just this all-encompassing caring for your creations, all of them, including the ones that are doing horrific things here in this galaxy. You still see them and they're a facet of you. And it's like, you have a child and a child didn't do so good. You still love it, right? It's making poor choices, but you still love it. Maybe you'll come around eventually. I keep nurturing you and eventually you'll come back and, become a responsible adult. There's no polarity. There's no duality. It's not male or female. It's just energy. It's just crazy conscious energy that's beyond anything that you could ever imagine. And I know that there had to be some kind of protective sphere around me because it would have just neutralized my consciousness if it hadn't have been. It would have just realigned me completely and I would have just been devoid of anything. But there's no evil in the universal consciousness. And I called it in the first book, God Source. But in the second book, I called it universal consciousness because we were broadening our awareness beyond the universe into something more, and we had to have that conversation. So no. Anyway, I think I covered that. So evil is a word that's defined as, ill intent, evil, just doing horrible things. It's negative polarity at its darkest. They just don't care. right? Rip your head off. Doesn't matter because you were in their way. It was in my way. Yeah. And that you could consider from our perspective as evil. From their perspective, the Vikings that invaded Lindisfarne and just like slaughtered all of the monks and everything and took all their gold and everything, they thought they were doing the right thing. Their religion said that that's what they were supposed to do. And that they would go to Valhalla, loot and plunder and fight and die in battle and go to Valhalla. And the monks, of course, thought something completely different. So, evil's subjective, right? Depends on perspective. All right. Please explain why hypnosis is a helpful tool. Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Okay, so like I showed you earlier, here we'll move. Oh, there's another page of this. We needed to get that on here. So I'll put that there for just a second and then I'll move back. As I showed before, your operative ego consciousness exists within this veil of forgetfulness that exists within your totality of consciousness. When you come for a QHHT session, which is why in my handout I'm talking about how to prepare for one and everything, you agree that I'm going to, me or whoever practitioner is going to assist you, is going to help your consciousness pierce that veil of forgetfulness and get in touch with your higher consciousness, your totality of consciousness. And it's not like we're looking anywhere else for it. It's right here in the same treehouse as we are. It's just you can't access it yet, or maybe you can when you just want a clearer connection. And that's what QHHT is for too. It opens a little door so that the higher consciousness can start talking, and it will show you the things that are important for this lifetime. So in a QHHT session, we usually take the client to 1 or 2 lifetimes. I take clients to 3, or I take them to however many they want to go to. We'd be here all day. I don't care. I think it's fun. But we take them to the lifetimes that their totality of consciousness knows they need for this lifetime so that they can get back on the path, assuming they're off the path, or maybe they're right where they need to be. The lifetimes they need to reconcile any imbalances from those other lifetimes that might be affecting this lifetime. Powerful, powerful healing happens in a QHHT session. And I've had people that balk at what I charge for a QHHT session. I take my whole day. I reserve my whole weekend. And I still have a normal job. My whole weekend for you. Yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit for me to do that. But yet, these are the same people that'll go to the doctor and pay $700 for them to say, oh yeah, you need, this prescription medication that, I mean, it's what doctors do anymore, is prescribe medication. But anyway, so, and as we get past the lifetimes, we go to the higher self. That's you from a higher perspective. And this is all in my 3rd book. What all of this means, these higher perspectives and the looking down into the lifetimes and all of that stuff, that's all in my 3rd book. Your higher self starts answering the questions that you have in this lifetime. And it already knows what you're going to ask. Of course it does. It's outside of time, and it's watching you in this lifetime. As weird as that sounds, that's what's going on. And then we start with what is the energy healing. We've got this window open from your veil of consciousness and your higher self. And the first thing we start doing is getting your chakras all set up, get all the imbalances out of you. We're looking for anything that's wrong in the body. And there's all these stories of miraculous healing that happens in QHHT because it's the energy of consciousness, unobstructed, that is recreating your golden template. So you have this golden template of what your body's supposed to be. And then it gets darker in the spots where the energy's not going, and that creates the disease. And I can see it when the higher self sees it too. And I'll be like, what's that over there? What's this? And what's that? And oh yeah, this and sometimes the client will have, my back hurts or my knee hurts or whatever. And we work on that too. And, if you agree and you believe that this is going to happen, then your experience moving forward after the session is miraculous in some cases. I fixed scoliosis last weekend. It was a mild case of scoliosis. Oh, you should have heard her back cracking. I was like, you're gonna feel some popping and that sort of, that's all normal. So don't be upset. Now we want to cure it. Wow. Okay. All right. What else have we got here? Somnambulist state and how it connects us to the unified field. Well, if you're a traveler, if you're a fragment from a higher collective, and many of us are, a lot of the people that are involved in my book and my work are, they're everywhere. You're going to feel the somnambulist state. So you're going to have dreams, you're going to have these kind of things. Somnambulist state is just this fancy term for in between awake and asleep. You know, that little spot where you're not quite asleep yet, and you're just sort of dreaming, but you're still awake and you're not totally. That's somnambulistic. And what QHHT does is put you there and keep you there so that we can keep you talking. Because if you went to sleep completely, you wouldn't say it. You'd be maybe snore on me. We want to keep you talking. We want to keep you there. And that's what the practitioner does, is keep you talking through this so that it becomes something that you can listen to later and we can get you through the process. So if you're a fragment from a higher consciousness, or traveler, visitor, volunteer, whatever you want to call that, you can reach ascended states, and that may be the concept of unified field. You're going to have more information than an organic consciousness that's in its initial ascension. That's why some people can tell you the construct of the universe, and other people can barely tell you what happened in a previous lifetime, because it's all the level of experience that they're operating from when they get to their totality of consciousness. And there's no judgment in that. It's just that some of us have been walking this path a little longer than others, and now we're turning around and holding our hand out to help those that are coming up behind us so that we can help them climb the stairs and join us. Akashic records, another fancy term. So the planetary consciousness is a rotating sphere of energetic particulate. It is recording everything that is occurring right now in everything that has ever occurred since it was a molten rock that started to solidify. Every bit of that is in its awareness. Some consciousnesses can reach up into that and start extracting information. And this is called the Akashic record. And I think that comes from the Vedic text too. the term Akash. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as long as they're really doing it and they're not just making stuff up. Yeah, the record is there. And every lifetime I've lived on Earth is right there in that record too, and can be accessed. And somebody else can replay that if they wanted to, replay that lifetime, which is really cool to think, you can step inside that lifetime energetically in an etheric construct and replay that. And that's the Akashic record that people allude to. It's the complete compendium of history of Earth. And every planet has that. Every system consciousness has that. So this is all occurring within a system. This is in my third book too. This is all occurring within the system consciousness. And everything that occurs there is occurring within the galactic consciousness, which is occurring within the universal consciousness and ultimately within Prime Creator. So at the very highest level, you are Prime Creator experiencing itself. And that's where that term comes from, that we're all source and we're all just experiencing itself. Yes and no, because you're an individualized consciousness and you're doing whatever it is you want to do. You're not doing anything that anyone else is telling you to do. I mean, unless you are actually connected and listening to the voices or whatever. But by the same token, everything is being recorded everywhere. And at any point, anyone can step into the memories and experience them. That's the Akashic record. How can we know they are genuine? Well, you have to use discernment on a lot of this stuff that's out there on the internet. Some people are deceptive on purpose, and other people think they're doing good, but they're putting out information that's not correct because they might be tapped into something that they shouldn't be, that's leading them astray and they don't know any better. This is where energetic discernment comes in, where you have to feel the energy that's coming off of the person that's providing the information, me at this moment, and determine whether you think the information is valid and real based on how it is I'm presenting it and how that energy is making you feel, and what the energy is telling and what the information is telling you. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are talking about terrible things that are going to happen. I don't see the benefit in that at all. It's really, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to the consciousness, but I mean, to the body and whatever, but okay. So, we move back to this picture when we're talking about a QHHT session. So this is the veil and this is your totality. And all we're doing in a QHHT session is opening up a little tiny window right there so that we can get information from this larger aspect here. And some people walk out and they're in touch with their higher self for the rest of their life. They're done and they don't need it. And other people want more sessions. And I give them for free. Whatever. Sure, I'll give you another session if my schedule's clear. Okay. So, just make sure I got all of these questions before we talk about anything else. Pole shifting and catastrophes that will take place. You know, personally, I don't see a pole shift happening for the ascending fourth density construct because it'll be too catastrophic. And that's not something that's not in the cards for us to experience. So I really don't want to talk about that. The poles have shifted on this planet before, and there's probably evidence in the ice cores and rock cores at the poles that can show that they've shifted before. And that really changed everything. That's why when you look at Google Earth and you look at all these mountains and everything, you can see all the erosion that happened when the water was on this planet just sloshing all over the place at some point, right? And created all of these big gullies and Grand Canyon and things like that. Yeah, poles have shifted before. I don't think they're going to, not this time. Okay, well, I think we've got everything that was on that list. So I just want to read this. We're at the precipice of an extraordinary experience in consciousness. While it may not seem like much fun being buffeted by the churn we're experiencing, it is a once in a universe experience. I say that again. It is a once in a universe experience. And we all came here to do this. Everyone who's seeking this type of information has the conscious density to choose any of the paths that have been discussed. When the cleansing occurs, everybody will know exactly what it is and exactly where they want to go. So don't wish for the ride to be over because it's uncomfortable. Because as soon as it's finished, you're going to wish it had taken longer. Trust me on that one. Yeah. Okay. So let's just open it up to questions if anybody has any. I know we've been going a couple hours now, so if you want to stop, we can do that, or we can keep on going.
Now's a good time, guys, if you have other questions to ask him.
Todd, I wonder if you have an opinion on nightmares, if that has anything to do with attacks or a previous life.
Well, yes to both and no to both. It's going to depend on the nightmare. I have had nightmares that I perceived as nightmares that were actually, past life experiences that I needed to kind of reconcile within my consciousness. And I understand that now. I didn't then. But then I've also had what I haven't had a nightmare in forever, but I've also had nightmares that didn't make any sense at all. You know, clowns with skis that are knives and they're like chasing you and just weird stuff like that. And I think that's either maybe something I ate
Yeah,
before bed that
right.
didn't agree with me, or some stupid thing that I might have watched, or just my brain neurons firing as they're trying to, you know, re-heal the pathways so that I can start my next day defragmented. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say unless we give you a session or you have an energetic reading, and I can do that. I don't do it because I seems kind of weird. I don't like reaching into other people's consciousness and pulling things out. It kind of feels like an infringement, so I don't do it. So yeah, you have to you sit with the nightmare. If you have a nightmare and it wakes you up, sit with it and ask it. Ask your consciousness, what is this trying to tell me? And if it says nothing, then don't worry about it. I can sleep. And
Makes sense.
if it has an answer, it's going to provide it for you.
Okay.
Todd, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your sessions that you do, you know, what somebody might be able to expect, and how they can get in touch with you.
Okay. I can do sessions online now, so I do them through Zoom, just like we're doing here. Uh, they're not officially called QHHT sessions because you're not supposed to do that. But you know, when Dolores Cannon put this out, the technology didn't exist to be able to do this comfortably or reliably. And now you put in some fail safes. Like if we get disconnected, you're just going to wake up from like a sleep, like a nap. You'll wake up refreshed and, you know, rested. So you don't have to come to Cary, North Carolina and stay in my tree studio. But if you want the whole immersive experience, this tree house is 20 feet off the ground between two wonderful tree consciousnesses that are buffeting and keeping all the polarity away from us. We're not connected to the grid, we're above the grid, and tree consciousnesses cannot hold polarization. So we're up in the trees, and the trees are our insulator. So you come here on a Friday, and you would stay in the studio here Friday night, and then, you know, you use the restroom or whatever, and you get yourself a little breakfast, and then we start our session. The session starts with an interview. And there's a lot that takes place in the interview other than just talking. There's a lot of energy work that I'm doing in the interview, even if we're doing it remotely, that is occurring. And I'm looking in your consciousness because you've agreed to it, you've signed up for the session. So I'm looking for things that I can help you with inside your consciousness, and I'll be able to identify whether you got something going on or what's going on. I have given sessions, like I said, I've hundreds of sessions now, but I've given sessions to people who had normal mundane lifetimes and could barely explain their other lives because they're organic consciousness and they're approaching fourth density and they want some answers. And I've given, just like last week, I've given a session to a fragment of a galactic consciousness that was talking to me directly. And this is for you, Todd. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah. I mean, it's not my session, but sure, provide me whatever information we need, right? So it runs the gamut and everywhere in between. Palladians, Lyrans, I mean, just Orions. I mean, one guy was a serial killer. It was like on a jet in 1972, and he's like thinking about killing a stewardess. I'm like, whoa, okay. So I've had reptilians. I've had there's a session on my YouTube channel, a reptilian who was in a ship who was destroyed by the energetic wave of the galactic cleansing. So there you go. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, tell us all about that one because we're all waiting for that here. Um, so we start with the interview. The interview lasts 4, probably not more than 4 hours, but some have gone 4 if there's a lot of emotional cleansing that we're working on. You know, there's lots of tissues and stuff that happen. And then we take a short break and then we come back in for the session. And I can kind of tell from the interview how long the session is going to take, but I don't ever tell the client that. And sometimes they take 2 hours and sometimes they take 6 hours. I had to just, whatever it takes is what it takes. We'll be here 10 hours if we have to be here 10 hours. And like I said, I reserve the entire day. The Zoom sessions, the remote sessions don't usually go that long. For reasons beyond my control, you know, the I don't have control over the space where the client is. So we have to work around that. How to get in touch with me, enlightened aspects at gmail.com. That's the easiest way. That's where people get in touch with me. You can leave a message on the Facebook page, Expansion for Ascending Consciousness, the YouTube channel, Enlightened Aspect Productions, where, gosh, I've probably got over 200 videos on there now. Some are just information, me talking, like walking through these slides like I did tonight. And others are session clips with important information that interesting and important information. Like I said, the one about the reptilian was on there. There's a lady who was a tree here on Earth for a couple thousand years, holding polarity. It was really cool. That was a good session too. Sitting bull. Huh. Gave a session to a lady who was sitting bull. Went to that lifetime. That was pretty cool. So I've done it all. And there is a fee involved. Most times, I mean, if you have a financial difficulty and you need a session, and you know, I'm not going to let money stand in the way of that. I'm not, you know, I'm not like that. So we can work around that. Yeah. What else? Anybody? All this information, no questions?
I'd
Oh.
like to say that I agreed with 99% of what you said. Awesome material, and it's almost identical to what my family speaks about on something that we don't necessarily give to public at that depth, but other sessions, yes. And I think it's really great. I know that most of the people here probably followed that pretty well. So really good material. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the compliment. I know I went fast, but I also recorded it. I guess I'll probably put it on my channel, but I'll put a copy in my Gmail account and I'll send it to anybody that sends me an email and says they want it. You can have access to the file on Google Drive and you can just download it yourself and, you know, or watch it there, I guess, and do whatever. Oh, look, there's a chat. I didn't open my chat. Oh,
Todd,
yeah.
Todd, I have one last question about the deep, meaningful connections that we have now on Earth. Do they have a future? You know, will we see? Will we know? Because we may not see. You know, especially in later ascensions. Will we recognize each other at a later time?
Absolutely. The reason why you have deep, meaningful connections with people now is because you have shared experiences with them from previous lifetimes.
Oh,
90% of the time, because consciousness, it's like finding a friend, a really good friend. You want to stay in touch with that friend because you have shared experiences. The same thing happens in consciousness, is that when you both experience something, so say you were husband and wife or brother and sister or sister and sister, whatever, in a prior lifetime, those energetic experiences are in both of your consciousnesses, which create a co-resonance that allow you to find each other again. So you may have been mother and daughter in another lifetime and you reverse roles in the next one so that you can have the same experience but from a different perspective. And I have knowledge that I have done that with one of my kids. And I don't want to say that in case they happen to watch this at some point in their future. I don't want them to feel embarrassed, but yeah, that has happened. You bring people in from other lifetimes. They want to continue experiencing with you. Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. And how about our pets that we are very attached to? Would we have still the connection and seeing them?
I had a dog who was with us for 15 years, and at 13 he kind of got sick, and I'm like, and I had this conversation with him like, come on man, you can make it to 15. We want you here until you're 15. And he lived to be like 15 and 3 days, and he's like, I'm done. Okay, so I know I know that that dog was a dog from earlier in my life when I really needed that connection with a dog at a time in my early teen years, and I needed that friend, that non-judgmental friend to play ball and catch and all that stuff with. I know that was the same dog, and that's why that was so important to me. And I made sure personally, because I know dogs a lot of times are on the precipice to becoming self-aware, which is why they're in the human construct. They're watching us and they're learning how to be a human. They're watching everything we're doing. And if we give them enough love and affection, and I was purposely like hitting my third eye onto his crown chakra and all that, there's like love, 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 right? You're going to be a good human, right? We can propel them into self-aware consciousness because that kind of affection and that kind of love shared with a consciousness accelerates their array and causes density expansion and can complete the seat of consciousness and make them self-aware. And I really hope that that's where he's at. And I still have dreams. I have dreams about him every now and again. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, it was good to see you again, buddy. Right? Yeah.
So encouraging. That's great. Well, I agree with Dale. This has been wonderful. I certainly am appreciative. I can't imagine a more fascinating subject, and you delivered it so well.
Thank you.
Yes, Todd, thank you so much. And I just want to say that, your material is so important. And so we want to support you in sharing this information because humanity really needs it. And it really is kind of like at the doctoral level of spiritual metaphysics. At least that's how I explain it to the others. And I just want to encourage you that, this is needed and it is being received and appreciated.
Well, thank you. I I need to get off my laurels and finish the third book. I've been writing it longer than I should have, and they're yelling at me about it. And I get it. I know it needs to come out. But I'm watching what's going on in the construct, and I'm like, they're still not ready. I mean, look at what we're doing out here. We're still playing the same old games we've been playing for thousands of years, like territorial conquest. A little tiny planet. This thing is a speck of dust in the universe, and we're fighting over little invisible lines on the ground. It's really kind of humorous and sad at the same time. So yes, thank you all. We're getting to the 2.5 hour mark, and I guess everybody needs to go. So we can do this again. Just reach out. I make myself available for those that are interested in the information. And again, all free of charge. This is just part of the service that I'm doing here. Like I said, I'm on vacation, so it's not like I came here on purpose to do this, although they keep saying, yes, I did. But no, I came here for vacation, and I try to keep reminding them that I'm on vacation. I still want to have a good time in my human body. So as long as they keep repairing it for me, I'm okay. I had a really serious fall in 2021, and it was iffy if I was ever going to walk again. And no, I'm 100%. 100%. I fell 18 feet. I was helping my neighbor build a tree house, and I fell off of the ladder, slipped out from under me. It was his ladder, and it was a junky ladder. But yeah, yeah, it was really bad. And I was like, well, I don't want to be here if I can't be myself. I'm ready to go now. So I got all fixed, and I'm all better now. So yeah.
And that was done through a session?
No, I did that myself. No, I just did
Wow.
it myself. I don't need sessions anymore. I I haven't done a session on myself in forever. Yeah. But there are a bunch on my YouTube channel where I was doing that early on. I don't need to do that anymore. My connection's immediate. I mean, it's here right now. So it's just never away. I mean, it's like
Can
I
I
said,
ask you a strange question?
sure.
Where's the Crystal City?
I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay,
I don't
maybe a
know.
conversation for another time.
Well, I'm going to need some context. I mean, we have energetic constructs all over the galaxy here. There's a lot of energetic constructs that would be referred to as crystal cities, or cities of light, or cities of gold, and that sort of thing. And without any context, I can't answer that. We'd
Okay.
have to have a deeper conversation before, and then I'd have to look in that direction. So if you said, hey, there's something here on Pleiades or something here on Alpha and in the solar system of Alpha Centauri, can you look over there? I can do that, and I can come up with an answer. Todd doesn't know anything about it, but whatever the information is that comes through, I give it to you and then allow you to use your discernment whether you feel that it's correct or incorrect. And there's no judgment on whether you do or don't. I'm okay with it.
Right, yeah, well, maybe we'll have a conversation another time and get more in depth with that.
Okay, you can reach out to me, email, we can do it personally, or we can do it, in another group session, whatever you want. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Sounds awesome.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
thank you, Todd, and
Thank
welcome,
you.
welcome to our group.
Oh.
Like I said, you're welcome and supported.
This is definitely not for beginners, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, well, that part is true. I need
Yeah.
to. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to sign out, everybody. Good seeing everyone. Thank you. Todd, thanks so
Bye,
much.
Dale.
Bye,
Good to
everybody.
see you.
Bye.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, if that's it, I guess I'm going to sign off myself.
Great, thank you, Todd. We'll be in touch.
Okay.